Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome back to Lost in the Wasteland. And this is a really awesome interview I get to do today because I have Ben Davis, who is the editor for SiftPop, and Ben gets a lot of emails and a lot of chats from me, and get to work very closely with Ben. So I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me here, man. I'm excited to join the wasteland.
And what's funny is because not a lot of people actually are like, why the hell's everything themed Wasteland on your channel? And I'm like, it's kind of cheesy, but I love me some Mad Max, and we're gonna go with it. So
Hopefully, I'm not mediocre.
I appreciate that reference.
Thank you.
So I like to start things off with probably a question that every film cinephile, film fan have ever been asked is, what's your favorite movie?
All right, so my favorite movie is a bit of a cheat. It's just a flat out cheat. It's the Skywalker Saga.
Okay.
So episodes 1 through 9, it's my favorite movie ever. It's the movie that started it all for me. My love for movies started with Star Wars Episode 4. So for me, that entire saga that follows the Skywalkers and the Palpatines, that's my bread and butter right there. Now, if you're gonna make me choose just one, it's Empire. That's my favorite.
Okay.
And if you're gonna ask me outside of Star Wars, what's my favorite movie? It's Fight Club.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as somebody who also cheats with their number one and says the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my number one film, I will not judge you for
Thank you.
the Star Wars thing. Because like people ask me that, I'm like, it's one movie.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, it is. You could just cut it into three pieces.
Yeah.
But I love, and it there's so many people who grew up on Star Wars and have such an impact and breed such a energy of fandom
Oh yeah.
into people. And like one of the first DVD collections I had was the original trilogy on DVD, and then I got the prequels because like I still remember I was 8 when Phantom Menace came out, and like I saw that in the theaters. I remember when Revenge of the Sith came out, and my 7th grade history teacher saw it opening night and bragged to everybody in class the next day. And I'm like, I didn't see it yet.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it yet. There's a cool story about that I have about Phantom Menace, if you don't mind me sharing.
Go right ahead.
So that movie came out. I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
I had just turned 5. I was really excited to see it, and my cousin, my second cousin, he was a general manager at a theater at the time, and they were showing the movie to employees before the 12:01 screening.
Okay.
So I got to see it. He invited me and my siblings and my mother to go see it before the actual release. So I got to see it before the general public, which was really cool. I remember
That is exciting.
I had all like my action figures with me, and my mom was like, "You gotta hide them so no one knows what movie we're seeing because Donald can get in trouble." And I was like, "Okay."
That's awesome. And because like I went with my aunt and her friend, and they both fell asleep. And I'm just sitting there enjoying Phantom Menace. And it's so crazy like how big Star Wars is.
Yeah.
And like we're gonna get a whole hell of a lot more of it,
Thank
especially
goodness.
after the Mandalorian. Because like
Mhm.
I saw somebody post, it's like one of those questions on Instagram. It's like, what show got you through 2021? I'm like, the Mandalorian got me through
Yes.
those last 8 weeks. And it made me so sad. All those memes where it's like, it's Christmas Day, but no Mandalorian. And it's just like, and like I'm excited for all the stuff that they're going to be putting out. That Disney Investors Day announcement thing was insane, and I'm just like, I have all my money already, so might as
Yeah.
well just get all of it.
It it was like one big mic drop. It was just one big drop.
And what was so funny because I remember when DC had like DC Universe and whatever, and they talked about their upcoming films, and a lot of people on the internet were like, Marvel looks like a bunch of chumps. DC just threw that down, and that Disney investors meeting happened. I'm just like, they don't care.
No.
Disney, and they announced 66 projects. And I'm just
Like,
like,
if you're a fan, we're all winning. Like,
exactly.
I get my DC, I get my Marvel, I get my Star Wars. I am a happy camper.
And then speaking about Fight Club, it's just like Fincher's one of the most impressive directors out there.
That
And the level of detail in his films are incredible. And like I remember watching Seven for the first time, and just movie will mess you up.
yeah.
Mess you up.
My wife has still not finished it. We started it 1 October, and I was like, this is kind of a horror movie. I was like, it'll, like you said, it'll mess you up. And we got to a point we had to pause it, and we never went back to it. And she says she's scared but to go back to it because she's heard about the ending. Now, no one has spoiled it for her, thank goodness. But yeah,
That's a feat.
it is. So I one of these days I'm gonna have to sit her down, and we're gonna have to watch it again because that's an incredible movie.
Awesome. Now, my second question, you actually hit on this a little bit. So if you do have another story, you can share it as what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
Oh,
So
Star Wars.
so you shared a really good one. I don't know if you have any other.
So my first experience going to the movie theaters, and I remember this, which is crazy because I was about to turn 3. So I don't know how I remember it, but I do. It's clear as day in my mind. I remember going to go see the re-release of A New Hope.
Okay.
At the Parkwood Cinema in Wilson, which no longer exists, but it was there. And I remember going to go see it and sitting in my dad's lap. And there's 3 scenes in particular that I remember. I remember Darth Vader arriving with the big on the Star Destroyer. I remember Luke igniting the lightsaber when Obi-Wan's telling him about his father's lightsaber. And I remember the trench run sequence. And those are the 3 big sequences that I remember seeing. And ever since then, I was just in love with Star Wars. And not only that, I was in love with movies as well. Now, my second time I remember going to the theater, I don't know if I went in between or what, but it was Batman and Robin. So 2
big cartoon.
Yeah, 2 very different movie experiences, which, when you're a kid, you love Batman and Robin, but you watch it as an adult and it's like, man, this movie is like one of the funniest unintentional comedies ever made.
And you learn all the best ice related puns, and you have them forever.
Jill.
I'm to chill. Like
Chill.
with the dinosaurs, the Ice Age.
Yep.
like as a kid, I watched the Batman animated series, and like you see Mr. Freeze in that, and then you see Arnold Schwarzenegger in Batman and Robin, and you're just like, this doesn't make any sense.
You have Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's a former Mr. Olympia, 7-time Mr. Olympia, and you don't cast him as Bane. You have the opportunity to either have him as Bane or Mr. Freeze, and you go Mr. Freeze?
So I doubt we would have gotten a maskless Bane, because there's no way in hell he would have put a mask on.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, he was the highest paid actor in that movie. So, like, I remember even the poster, like, his face is front and center in the poster, too. I'm like, it's not even Batman. Well, and that's an interesting thing, too, because, like, historically, those 90s Batman films, like, starting, like, the late 80s, the Batman actor wasn't necessarily the biggest name actor in the movie. Like, Jack Nicholson's, like, right across the front for Batman. And, like, I guess looking back, like Val Kilmer was a big actor at the time, but like looking back now, I'm like, I'm gonna remember Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey a lot more than I'm gonna remember Val Kilmer. But like, especially with Batman and Robin, she's like, you have Arnold in this.
Yeah.
He's one of the biggest box office draws of the 80s and 90s, and he's your villain. And then you had George Clooney.
You're From Dusk Till Dawn. Those were the things that he was known for, which Dusk Till Dawn it's more widely known now. I don't know if it was really a big hit when it came out, but
now, Ben, do you have a particular favorite genre of film?
So I guess I would probably have to go fantasy. My favorite movies is the Skywalker Saga is number one, but number three is Lord of the Rings trilogy for me. There's something about the fantasy genre that I feel like you can put a lot into the fantasy genre. I just talked about The Shape of Water on my podcast.
I love that film.
It's an incredible movie, and yes, it's a fantasy about a woman falling in love with a fish man, the amphibian man, but underneath it, there's a lot of social commentary on a lot of great things that need to be discussed and topics that are kind of not taboo, but for the time they were taboo. And I think you can get by with a lot of stuff like that in the fantasy genre without it feeling heavy-handed or anything like that. And I think that's why the fantasy genre appeals to me the most.
And it's interesting too, because my girlfriend Jess has never, I don't think she's ever watched Shape of Water, but she does refer to it as Grinding Nemo. So got that from the internet somewhere. I'm just like, my God, please don't. But like, that's one podcast that I listen to is the Cinephiles, and I've actually been going back and listening to it. And they had an early episode on Planet of the Apes. And that's the thing about science fiction and fantasy is that, it's about a woman falling in love with this fish man creature thing, but there's so many layers to it. The fact, like 99% of the stuff Michael Shannon's character does in that movie is really bad.
Yeah, horrendous.
Like the layers of sexism and racism and homophobia and the Red Scare. All those all layered into this film, and it's such a beautiful film, and nobody can argue that Guillermo del Toro does not have one of the most amazing imaginations of any filmmaker. Like, maybe sometimes his films don't hit as well as they could have, but nobody's ever going to argue that he doesn't create a world and characters and just amazing imagination. And fantasy and science fiction are definitely my favorites too. And Lord of the Rings, Mad Max. There's so much commentary in Mad Max. Like, honestly, like Fury Road dealing with just blind devotion and like it's a dictatorship, like convincing people that water is bad for you, will make you weak. Like, literally
it'll poison your mind.
And like all of that, and those are the coolest things, and being able to transport into a different world is so awesome. Now, Ben, do you have a particular favorite filmmaker?
Oh, that's tough. That one's tough for me because I feel like I have a personal favorite, someone who none of his movies are in my top. Well, a couple of them are in my top 10, but none of them are my top 3, and it's James Cameron. Probably because I look at his filmography, and whether you're talking about Terminator 1, Aliens, Terminator 2, The Abyss, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, there's 7 movies, so it's not a huge filmography, but all of them are good to great. And he's dealing again with the science fiction genre and the fantasy genre, and blending the horror genre in with Aliens. But I think he's an incredible filmmaker that never misses. But I think the one that interests me the most currently is Christopher Nolan. All his movies that come out, whether I like them, none of them I've hated, but whether I like them or I love them, I'm always intrigued at what he's trying to accomplish, especially with all his stuff involving time. And how he manipulates it. I just saw Tenet, and that movie I think is going to be one of those movies that I revisit in 10 years from now, and I'm going to be going, why didn't this win Best Picture? And then someone who I think is consistently probably the greatest director of all time is Steven Spielberg, because of the genres that he's dealt with. Every genre,
done everything.
He's done everything, and he's done it great. Well, comedy maybe not so much, but
that's probably the one that like there's humor in his films,
Mhm.
most of them, but like straight comedy, I don't know if that really works.
1940, was it 1941?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not great, but he has successfully been able to branch out and to do other genres successfully. It's one of my like biggest critiques against, as much as I love Quentin Tarantino, he doesn't really branch out from what he knows.
Mhm.
Someone like Steven Spielberg tries to tackle different genres, and in fact he's doing his first musical. So he's still learning and still doing. So
I'm very interested about his West Side Story,
yeah, I
and
am too.
we already should have seen it.
I
It's a
know.
sad thing, and but like it's interesting because you have James Cameron who has a very small filmography, but like straight action movies, I don't know if there's many that I have more fun with than True Lies. I love that movie, and like Arnold is just perfect in it. Jamie Lee Curtis is great. Even Tom Arnold, of all
Who
people,
who would
is
have thought Tom Arnold would have been funny, but he's great in that.
yeah. And like, oh, Bill Paxton, who's like a lucky charm of James Cameron. Hit that used car salesman is so sleazy. But like, they even had they took Nick Fury and put him in a James Cameron movie, basically, and cast him with Charlton Heston, like the leader of the organization. I'm like, that's Nick Fury, and it's Charlton Heston, and it made me so happy. And like, I remember watching that as a kid. I'm like, this is great. And that's the thing about James Cameron. Like, T2 Judgment Day is one of my favorite films,
That,
and
yep, that's in my top 10.
it's incredible. And it's so interesting that you brought up Nolan right after him because I feel like they're on the same level of ambition
Yep.
where they try to challenge filmmaking. And that's why we haven't gotten a James Cameron film since what, 2009? And then we're going to get like 50 avatars.
I know we're getting like 50, like you just said, 50 Avatar movies.
And I'm like, I would have been happier if he made like 50 more Terminator movies because at least he made the really good ones.
I kind of block out the rest of them. I enjoy some of them to varying degrees. Like Terminator 3, it's okay. Terminator Salvation is also kind of okay. Terminator Genesis, I think, is actually probably the best one post, for at least for me, post T2. But they made the crucial sin of making John Connor the villain, and then Dark Fate just doubled down on that, or not the villain, but like just making John Connor
Dead
not
within like the first
yeah.
couple minutes.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I kind of checked out after that, to be honest.
Like Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite filmmakers, and just his films are events.
They are.
There's no other way to describe it. And like, I watched Tenet at a drive-in, which was interesting. I got to adjust the volume, which was probably the nicest thing. But like that, like I'm just sitting in awe. I'm like, how the hell did he make this movie? And that's the incredible thing about his films being able to do that. And yeah, Steven Spielberg, whenever somebody brings up Steven Spielberg and you talk about range, all you have to do is mention 1993. Schindler's List and Jurassic Park came out in the same year, and he directed both of them.
That's crazy to me. And I was talking about that the other day. Me and my mother had a Jurassic Park marathon. We sat down, we watched all the Jurassic Park movies up to Fallen Kingdom?
Fallen Kingdom. Yeah, Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom's the last one. And I was talking about Steven Spielberg and how he did Schindler's List and Jurassic Park in the same year. And I just thought that was incredible, how you can go from this really depressing and gut-wrenching World War II movie about the Holocaust to a just groundbreaking special effects extravaganza that also has an incredible story too. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think Steven Spielberg is the best filmmaker ever. He's just he's so good.
There's not a whole lot of arguing with that. Now, Ben, do you have particular favorite actors or actresses?
So my favorite actor is a bit of an oddball.
Okay.
If you notice on my forearm, I have a triad tattoo for my favorite band, 30 Seconds to Mars. And the front man of that band is Jared Leto.
Okay.
He is my favorite actor of all time. Now, he's not the biggest name, but I just rather his attempts work really well, like he did in Dallas Buyers Club, or they don't, like his Joker, which we only got really about 10 minutes, and his performance felt stilted, which I think there's we know the reasons why.
There's so many other things you could talk about Suicide Squad for not working than the like 3 minutes of screen time that he gets.
Yeah, but he throws himself into every single role that he does, whether it's big or small. And I just think he's an incredible performer, and he's also my favorite musician for my favorite band. Actually, fun story. He actually got me up on stage at a 30 Seconds to Mars concert, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's Do or Die 2017. And I think it's in Toronto, Canada. And you'll see a guy wearing a white tee or a white cutoff t-shirt that says "Holy Guacamole" on it, and it's me losing my mind. I'll never be that cool again. But also I love Leo for his consistency, and my newest, he's not a new actor, he's been around for a while now, but Adam Driver, consistency as well.
Yeah, he's gonna be a star, like if he's not a star already, but like he's a star. And like no matter what anybody's feelings are about like the sequel trilogy, the most consistent best part of that is Kylo Ren, and he owns it every second of it. And then you watch Marriage Story, and I'm like, I felt emotionally drained because like I got to see that in a theater, and like leaving that theater that night, like I had worked that day, went to go see Marriage Story. I'm just like sitting in my car after, and I called my girlfriend. I'm just like, I feel some feels right now.
I'm feeling some type of way right now about what we just saw. Yeah, Adam Driver, he's consistent, and he brings, I know it's people not make fun, but it's always a go-to thing about him, his intensity. But he also has incredibly good comedic timing.
Yeah.
Like his SNL stuff is hilarious.
The undercover boss.
Yes, the boss thing with the Kylo Ren undercover boss. I also really love the sleepover, that the one where the girls are sleeping over and he's the father going downstairs to talk to them about one of them flushed like a woman hygiene product down the toilet. You're not supposed to do that. And just him going through that was really hilarious. But he, like you said, the sequel trilogy. Now, I just said my favorite thing about, or my favorite movie is Star Wars. My favorite character in all of those movies is Kylo Ren Ben Solo. I love that character. I love everything about how he started, how he ended, and how poetic it was, the way that he went out. I don't want to spoil anything, but I love that character, and I love him as an actor. He's incredible.
Yeah. I remember, I think the first thing I saw him in, oddly, was Inside Llewyn Davis. And like he has a really small part in it, in this really quirky, like tacky band with Justin Timberlake. And like, and it's really funny because Adam Driver does these really obnoxious like vocals in the song, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's really funny. Now, do you have any particular favorite actresses?
Actresses, I have quite a few. Viola Davis is one. I think that, again, consistency. She is incredibly consistent and brings a certain type of gravitas to all her roles, and it just feels very lived in and believable. Of course, the Street Monster. She's absolutely, I think she's the greatest actor of all time. If you're going by statistics, and how many times they've been nominated for an Oscar and how many times they've won, yeah. She shows up in a movie for 5 seconds because a nomination. Like she's incredible. And then of course, Jennifer Lawrence. I know it's the popular thing to hate on Jennifer Lawrence, but I really appreciate all her. Again, it's that believability that she brings to each role. And then Amy Adams, who I think is probably the most underrated actress working today.
Yeah, she scared me a couple times watching Hillbilly Elegy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, holy crap. It was intense. And like Jennifer Lawrence, like she's a really talented actress.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell when she really doesn't want to be in a movie?
Yep.
Like especially some of those later X-Men movies.
The last two. Oof, rough.
I'm just like, she wanted to be killed off because she didn't want to be there anymore. But like, there's no arguing with Streep. Like, even at like something like Into the Woods, she gives it her all. Like she's in musicals, she does dramatic, she does comedy. I remember watching Devil Wears Prada and just being like, I'm not surprised she got nominated for this movie. She's intense, she's scary, and she's a very powerful character. Viola Davis is a force. And
she's so good.
Even just the one scene that she's in doubt, incredible. And like Fences. I don't even know how they fit Viola Davis and Denzel on the same screen because they were just so big and powerful, both of them, between the two of them. Probably why there's no other characters. Like obviously it's based off a play and it's not like a big film, but like they made it feel big.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And like even in something like Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller was badass, and like even Deadshot like turned around and just like,
all right, I don't want to mess with that woman. Yeah, she's incredible. I tell you another actress that I was just thinking of that just slipped my mind. She was just in the Queen's Gambit.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, she is about to have an incredible career.
Yeah, I remember watching Thoroughbreds. Is that 2019? I think it might have been 2018, 2019. And like, it feels like, so obviously somebody watched a Kubrick movie. And like, that's the feel of how it's directed and everything. But like her and Olivia Cooke together are just fantastic. She's going to be headlining a Mad Max movie. And like
Furiosa.
A younger Furiosa. And I'm just like, it's going to be interesting. And like, I remember watching Queen's Gambit. I'm like, I did not expect to like this series as much as I did. Yeah. And it's a really impressive performance from her too. Now, Ben, do you have any films that you feel like you could just watch every day?
This is not a popular choice. I will probably get a lot of hate for it, but that's okay. Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition.
Okay.
That is my second favorite comic book movie of all time, but there's something about that movie that I find inherently rewatchable. And I think it's because of the themes that it tackles, as well as how each time I watch the movie, there's just something else that pops out to me. Whether it's the dialogue, whether it's the beautiful symbolism throughout the entire story. I just think that movie has aged like a fine wine, and I can pop it on pretty much any day and watch it. Another one is 21 Jump Street, which is completely different, but that movie's probably the funniest movie of all time to me. It's so relatable.
Oh my God. So I have some thoughts about that, but getting back to BVS real quick, I wish more people watch the Ultimate Edition because it does improve. Like, there's not a whole lot of films that like you throw in deleted scenes and improves the film, or even how they reworked it. But like, I guess Zack Snyder needs a little more time to breathe with his movies. And honestly, that seems to be one of the biggest issues with his films with DC, is that they were really trying to shoot for, let's make a 2-hour movie. And some stories don't work that way. No. And like, some of my favorite films are like 3+ hours. I'm like, this wouldn't work 2 hours. And like, I don't love Batman v Superman, even the Ultimate Edition, but like I definitely feel like it's a better version of the film. And I
Yeah.
was glad that like I remember buying it on Blu-ray when that came out and got a chance to watch it. But there's things about that film I do love, like the actual Batman versus Superman. That fight is incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm just like, and I love Ben Affleck Batman.
It's my favorite Batman.
And I'm like, this Batman is intense and scary and actually looks like he could beat the living hell out of you.
Yeah.
Because like Ben Affleck's a big dude.
Yeah, he's like 6'4", and he's
Like he even looks small next to Henry Cavill, but like he's a big dude. And that when he goes to into the warehouse, that scene is so cool. Like that point where he literally punches a guy's head into the floor. I'm like,
yeah. Well, the way that they shoot that Batman, he's like the Freddy Krueger.
yeah,
You know, like the first time you see him, these people are terrified. They're staying locked into the cage. The cop's like, "Hey, you can come on out," and they're like, "Nope, we're good. He's still up there."
no, thank you.
Yeah. And then when the camera pans, you see him just in the corner chilling.
Yeah,
And it has that awesome score, that Hans Zimmer Junkie XL score, painting him as this boogeyman. And you talked about it before. I think Ben Affleck's Batman understands the psychology, at least for me, of the character of Batman, which is Bruce Wayne is the mask, Batman is who he is, and that's how they paint it. And that's why it, as someone who grew up a huge Batman fan, this was what I had wanted to see. My entire young adult life was that, and we finally got to see it, and it was glorious. And like you were talking about this movie adding the 30 minutes that it needed to breathe, it gave the movie life, because the theatrical edition I like, but it has a lot of editing and pacing issues. This movie, it felt like 3 hours. The 3-hour version feels like a 2-hour movie to me, because the editing and pacing issues are not as there for me anyway, as much.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the theater watching BVS, and there was a moment where I'm like, did they edit these scenes in the incorrect order? And I swear they fixed it in the Ultimate Edition. I'm like, okay, I wasn't going insane sitting and watching that movie in the theater, because like, and that's awful. And
Yeah.
like, I love superhero movies and comic book movies, and like I love Marvel movies. And it took me a long time to appreciate Man of Steel more. Each time I watch it, I love it more. Like, especially now that I've gotten a chance to love Michael Shannon as an actor. Like, watching his Zod is just so intense. And like, I love Russell Crowe, and I thought that was a really cool choice for Jor-El. And like, Henry Cavill looks like Superman.
He's Superman to me.
And like, I enjoyed Justice League. Like, it felt like an easily digestible film.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I could throw this. Like, Batman v Superman felt like an ambitious film.
Yeah.
And it was doing things. And like, I'm not dying to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, but I am hoping that I see a better film than what we got with that thrown together Joss Whedon movie.
The
like,
Frankenstein's monster.
Because you can tell that movie wasn't right. Something wasn't right about it.
Yeah,
And
it was there was something off about it. I remember going, to the theater and leaving the theater, and it's like the first event. Like, I love Marvel films as well, so I left the first Avengers or the first Justice League movie, and it felt like I watched the first Avengers movie, which, I've gone on record on my podcast and other podcasts saying I love the first Avengers movie. The first time I watched it, the second time I watched it, not as much. The third time I watched it, it was just okay. Justice League, I felt the same way. I loved it as a DC fan the first time watching. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm seeing all these characters together. But then the more the movie sat with me and the more times I've watched it, I've grown to become a little bit more critical of it in terms of like, oh, there's some things here, and well, there's some things here. Okay, this movie doesn't work as well upon rewatches.
Yeah. For me, when I left Justice League, I wanted to feel like I should have felt the way that I watched the Avengers for the first time,
Yeah.
but I didn't. And the crazy thing is, it's like, these are bigger characters.
Yeah.
This is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and like Aquaman, and just like I felt like I should have been watching something that felt so epic.
Yeah.
Like watching the first Avengers movie again, it's like some of that stuff feels flat. Like the cinematography, I'm a huge fan of cinematography. It looks like a lot of the movie a glorified TV show.
Yes.
But like that's Joss Whedon, which is the unfortunate thing. And like I want to feel that epicness of like walking out of something and being like, that's how you should feel when you see all of these characters brought together for the first time. Now, to shift gears to the other movie that you brought up, 21 Jump Street. So I was in college and I had a group of friends and we were going out to the movies on opening night, and 21 Jump Street came out the same night as that Nicholas Sparks movie with Zac Efron in it, The Lucky One.
The Lucky One, yeah.
And I had a choice. Go with most of the group and go see The Lucky One, or go off with some people that I didn't know so well and go see 21 Jump Street. I'm like, oh, that looks stupid. I'm going to hang out with my friends. Boy, was I wrong. And like, Lucky One's a cheesy, sappy, exactly what you would expect from it. 21 Jump Street is one of the funniest things I've ever watched. And like Lord and Miller, kudos to them for like that and the Lego movie. How did these things work? They did.
They shouldn't, but they do.
To make a connection here to Star Wars, obviously the internet makes a lot of memes and GIFs and everything. So one of my favorite things, and I'm not going to spoil the season finale of The Mandalorian, but one particular thing happens that every Star Wars fan out there was like, oh my God. And I saw it. So like you have the little screen and it's Channing Tatum like sitting, and in context, it's 22 Jump Street, where he finds out that Jonah Hill's sleeping with the captain's daughter. Like, oh, and it's like running around. It's like they put that over that arrival in the season finale of The Mandalorian.
That's fantastic.
And I lost it.
That's awesome.
But like 21 Jump, like I recently rewatched that. I'm just like, this is comedy gold.
It holds up so well, which is very hard for comedies to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and 21 Jump Street was a successful show back in the day. It was, you know, what launched Johnny Depp's career, you know, to being like this teenage heartthrob at the time. And when I heard that they were doing a TV show of it, I was like, or, you know, they were making a movie out of the TV show, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then when they cast Jonah Hill, I was like, oh God, this is going to be bad. And Channing Tatum at the time.
Yeah.
I liked him, but it was because he had a presence, but he was not a good actor, I didn't think at the time. But boy, has he stepped it up and become I think a really good actor. And not only that, but that movie, I don't think I've ever laughed as hard in a movie theater as I did the first time I watched that movie. Maybe Step Brothers, but like 21 Jump Street was just, I was so surprised. Mm-hmm. Like the first 5 minutes when they're in the park, when they run into the crew of the drug dealing bikers, yeah. I didn't stop laughing for about 5 minutes. My ribs were hurting. We arrest people now. Bop, bop. So funny.
Ice Cube and like if you like that movie has Dave Franco, Alison Brie, and not Alison Brie.
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. He's married to Alison Brie. And like Rob Riggle, which Rob Riggle annoys me a lot of the time, but like he was great as the track coach. And like Nick Offerman and his tiny and that character is so self-aware. It's hilarious, and just Nick Offerman's dry humor about it. But I could definitely, comedies are those kinds of movies, like if they're funny, you could watch them over and over and over again. Now, Ben, what's a film that you feel like you have a strong connection to because it's related to another interest of yours?
Ooh, that's tough because there hasn't really. So I wrestled in high school,
Mhm.
and that was a sport I loved, and I still do. And there's not really, and I bodybuild after high school. I took up bodybuilding, and but there's not really a lot of good bodybuilding movies. And neither is there a lot of good wrestling movies.
Mhm.
You have Vision Quest, but that movie's a little weird now to
Mhm.
watch it with the Madonna soundtrack, "Crazy for You" or whatever that soundtrack was. But the movie that I think holds a special place in my heart because of what it meant to me my senior year in wrestling is Warrior. It's the Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton movie. Now, it's not a wrestling movie, but it's an MMA movie, and
Yeah.
wrestling's a mixed, it's a martial art. So getting to see that my senior year and watch it as I was prepping for regionals and states and everything like that. That movie holds a special place in my heart for, kind of, it was my motivation. It was the movie I watched before every big tournament that I
Yeah.
had was Warrior.
And that, I love that film.
It's a great
And
movie.
that's an intense film. And it's one of the, like, a lot of Tom Hardy's roles show how great of a physical actor he is. He's just a monster
He's a
in
beast.
that
Those
movie.
traps come up to his ears. It's insane. I don't know how he did that. It's genetically blessed, I guess.
And it's just him, and like Joel Edgerton's a talented actor too. And
Mhm.
like that movie delivers a lot of emotion and drama. And then like the strangest like cameo from like Kurt Angle's in it. That was because like I never wrestled, but like I've been a pro wrestling fan since I was in middle school. So like that caught my, I'm like, oh my God, it's Kurt Angle, which at least between actual wrestlers and pro wrestlers, like we all know who Kurt Angle is.
He won a gold medal with a broken freaking
Look at
neck. Yeah.
an actual wrestler.
Yeah.
And like that was an interesting thing, but like it's a really great movie, and it's like Gavin O'Connor,
Yes,
the
Gavin
director,
O'Connor
because
did that.
like he's a really talented director.
Yeah.
Like he did, like I love The Accountant a lot
That's a
more than critics did. It made
big.
me so sad that that was like middle of the road reviews for them. Like this is a really awesome movie.
Yeah,
And then The
it's
Way
one of the
Back.
it's one of the best movies to ever handle autism
I
because it shows it in such a positive light. I know what he does for a living is not necessarily positive, but like
Yeah, being an
him,
accountant's awful.
aside from the stuff he did on the side, but like he, I don't know. I just felt like that was one of the best and most positive lights I've ever
I
seen on someone suffering from high functioning autism.
I think they were respectful of it, and they realistically, because like my girlfriend's like a BCBA, like she works with teenagers that are autistic every day,
Yeah,
and like they showed like stimming and stuff like that in a really realistic way, and like the
yeah,
whole sensory overload thing, and like him doing that rubbing and stuff like that. And then like it has cool action, it has a great cast. I love John Bernthal,
oh
like, and like I loved it. And then The Way Back,
yeah.
which if this year was different, I feel like people would still be talking about Ben Affleck for his performance in that, because like that performance was tragic. Like that one scene in that with him just going back for another beer and another beer, and I'm just like, oh God, please stop.
Yeah, by the end of the whole fridge is gone. He had it down to like a system where he had him in the refrigerator, then you'd put one in the freezer, then you go to the freezer, pull one out, put it in the refrigerator. It was just an entire system, and he drank until he passed out, and then woke up the next morning and was drinking in the shower. Like I remember going to see that movie with one of my really good buddies, Sean, and we saw it in a theater where you can have alcoholic beverages.
Mm-hmm.
And I was drinking one. And as that movie progressed, I was like, nah, I'm good. It's like,
I have some different feelings about this drink right now.
yeah, I'm having some different feelings about this Bud Light right now. And I just want some water.
Oh man. Now, Ben, do you have a film character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
I have a couple. I
Okay.
have two in particular. I actually, can I throw in a TV character as well?
Sure.
So I relate to Jon Snow, I feel like. Not because when I used to have my long hair, people used to tell me I looked like Jon Snow. But I relate to him in the level in the sense that, you know, he was kind of an outcast of the family, but he was, you know, he rose to this, you know, great prominence and everything like that. And he was kind of like the guy that didn't want to ever be the guy or the leader, but somehow became it, even though I don't want it, you know. Another one that I relate to, but you know, obviously I'm definitely less of a fan of genocide. Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. I relate to him in the sense of feeling, you know, great pressure because I'm the youngest of four, and living up to, because in my mind, my siblings are just, all of them are just so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So living up to them and the pressure I have felt my entire life, trying to live up to them and to be, you know, good or great. And the other character that I relate to the most, probably the most out of all of them, is Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is a breast cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And in that movie, you know, Star-Lord is around that age where my mom had breast cancer. So that hit close to home to me, and the stuff that he goes through and everything like that in those movies, I relate to a great deal. So if I had to pick three characters that I relate to the most, in no particular order, Peter Quill, Star-Lord, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, and Jon Snow.
I was a little late to the game in terms of Game of Thrones. I think I only watched the 7th and 8th season live. So like I caught up like 6 seasons, and I'm like, my favorite, well, I had really bad luck with favorite characters. Because like Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon, my two favorite characters right off the start of the show. And I'm like, by the end of season 1, I'm just like, I hate Game of Thrones. But like, I think Jon Snow is one of the most respectful characters in that show.
Yeah.
And like, all he wants to do is right. And Ned got it for wanting to do right. And Jon Snow got a lot luckier than him.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a respectful character. And like, thinking about, like, it's funny because I saw Force Awakens with like a whole bunch of people, but my brother was sitting right next to me. He was cosplaying as Kylo Ren.
Oh, nice.
And the whole entire thing. And my brother has some issues with breaking things when he gets angry.
Yeah.
And getting upset. And that moment where Kylo Ren just like puts on his lightsaber and starts like slashing that panel, I'm just like,
you're like the stormtroopers who see it and then just walk out.
I slow turned them like, that's you.
Yeah.
And like Star-Lord, I know it became very popular to get mad at Star-Lord because of Infinity War.
Yeah.
Which people gave too much crap to Star-Lord for that. He was very emotionally under duress at that point. But like, I love that character. And like Chris Pratt plays him with so much endearing energy about just like, he's such a clown, but you like him anyway. And
he's such a clown, but he has that, like, he's posturing in a way because deep down he has so much sadness.
Oh, so his whole interactions with Thor It's just him bleeding out there.
It's so great.
Oh my god. I lost it when they bring Thor into the ship in Infinity War, and Rock is just like, "Come on, Quill, you're one sandwich away from being fat," and I'm just like, "That's mean. Like, that's awful." And like, I'm interested to see what happens in Thor: Love and Thunder with their interactions now, because Thor isn't exactly the perfect human specimen anymore that he was
No,
after Endgame.
I'm hoping that it's. I shouldn't say hope because I'm always a big proponent of. I try to go into movies and judge them based off of what the director and the writers are giving me versus what I want and what I want for these characters. But it's hard for me at the same time for this particular movie because I really want a scene of Thor trying to like be like the genie to his Aladdin trying to win Gamora's heart back. Or like the reverse of that. Because that would be hilarious.
Him trying to be wingman
Yeah.
for Warlord. Oh my god. I never thought about that, but now I want to see that.
I want to see it so bad.
Oh man. Now, what film do you feel like would surprise people to find out that you like?
Ooh. So I'm a sucker for this. Probably isn't politically correct to say anymore, but chick flicks.
Okay.
I love a good rom com. And one rom com that I notoriously used to watch throughout high school that I haven't seen since, but a movie that I really holds a special place in my heart, I guess you could say, is A Walk to Remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I acknowledge. Look, that movie's cheesy. It is sappy, but that Switchfoot soundtrack, man, it's great.
Because like, obviously I've thought about these questions every time that I've asked people these questions, and like this is closing on like 15 episodes at this point. And like it's funny because like the one that always pops in my head is Me Before You. Like there's no reason, like I had a early screening at AMC for that, and I brought my friend Kevin with me, and the two of us are sitting there watching this, and like, there's no reason the two of us should love this movie so much, but we're having a ball with this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like Emilia Clarke, wasn't the hugest fan of her through most of Game of Thrones as like an actress, but boy is she funny and charming and charismatic when she's in a rom-com.
She's great. That's another one. It's surprising that I like is Last Christmas.
I enjoyed that quite a bit. I'm just like, why is she so charming?
I know she's incredibly charming and sweet. My wife often jokes and says, if anything bad were to happen to me and you were to move on, Emilia Clarke would be the person I'd choose for you. And I'm like, okay, there's worse options. She's just so delightful, charming, and funny.
Mm-hmm. Now, my last question for you, Ben, is why do you love movies?
That's a big question. I guess you could say that the reason I love movies so much is because it's an escape. An escape from the world and problems in the world. But at the same time, you also, for me, the greatest teacher of empathy is movies, which art often is books, movies, music are great teachers of empathy, but movies in particular for me are what gives me a viewpoint and a vantage point into someone else's lives and what they go through and, living in their shoes. And while, certain characters, I could never, go through what certain characters in movies go through, I can at least sympathize with their plights. And I think that's why I love movies so much is seeing different viewpoints and different perspectives and seeing big imaginations on screen. I love also character interactions and seeing different types of characters on screen and in their interactions. So I guess you could say the reason I love movies so much is because it's the greatest teacher of empathy for me.
And that's awesome. And I really appreciate that because like I feel like there's obviously a lot of forms of art, but not every form of art has so many dimensions to it. Like
Yeah.
you're seeing, you're hearing, you're feeling a lot of things while watching a film, and being able to be lost in somebody else's life, like being lost in a drama, just in somebody's day-to-day plights, or being lost in a different culture and learning about their cultures, or being in a different world that has similarities to yours and you can
Yeah.
see things in a different light, because that's what great films do, is being able to make those connections. Now, Ben, it is your turn. So the last thing I like to do here is have my guest ask me a question.
Okay.
So what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
Okay. Let's see here. All right. So from the year 2010 to 2019, what was your favorite movie to win Best Picture?
Now, going through to all the films that won Best Picture, because it was what?
So
King's Speech,
King's Speech, The Artist, Argo,
uh,
12 Years a Slave, Birdman, and then 2015, I think, was Spotlight. 2016
I
was
I get irrationally angry when people bring up Spotlight because we all know what should have won Best Picture from 2015.
I will agree with that one.
I would have even taken The Revenant. Like there's some things I have issue with in The Revenant, but but those are
Okay.
whole other feelings.
And 2016 was Moonlight.
Mhm.
2017,
Almost La La Land.
yeah, almost La La Land. 2017 was The Shape of Water. 2018 was Green Book, and 2019 was Parasite.
See, up until 2017, this was going to be a really hard choice for me because, like, none of them are things that I absolutely love and go back to and want to really rewatch. Like, I do love King's Speech. I think it's a really quality film. There's probably half the other nominees that I might have picked over it for me personally. And like I enjoyed The Artist a lot. I think that was a beautiful little film. Argo's intense as hell.
Yes.
And well, speaking of intense, 12 Years a Slave. Um, but I love Shape of Water and I love Parasite. I think those are the only two films out of all of those that actually made my top five that won Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tough choice between the two of them. Just from like everybody loves Parasite right now, and I don't blame them. It was an amazing film. For me personally, I'm probably gonna have to go with Shape of Water just because I love Guillermo del Toro's direction. It is a beautiful, beautiful film. Which, fun fact, the cinematographer for that, I think it's Dan Louston, also was the DP for John Wick Chapter 2 the same year, which is an equally beautiful film in a very different way.
In a different way.
Because like I do my own awards, and like cinematography is one of my favorite awards to give out, and I'm like I nominated him twice because he deserved it for both of them. And like Alexandre Desplat, my God, he can make a score. And the Shape of Water score is beautiful.
It
And then
is.
just the acting across the board, like Sally Hawkins is great. Like, why am I blanking?
Richard E. Grant.
Because you had Richard Jenkins as her best friend,
Richard Jenkins.
The dad from Step Brothers is such a talented actor.
He is.
Like, he told me to stop being a dinosaur. But like,
and then one day I could come back to it.
And just I'm going to I went to the Cheesecake Factory and had a drink. But like Michael Shannon is intense in like he is the embodiment of intensity. I'm like, I would be afraid to meet him in real life because I feel like he'd be so intense. And you had Michael Stuhlbarg, who was like basically in everything around that time.
He was in like 3 movies that year that were nominated for Best Picture. I think The Post, Shape of Water, and Call Me by Your Name.
Octavia Spencer.
Yep.
That's like literally you put her in a supporting role, she's going to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And just the acting was great. I love that film. Is it weird? Yeah.
Yep.
But like I remember having a conversation. My sister-in-law was like disturbed by the idea of that movie. I'm like, it is a beautiful love story. You have to take a step back and realize this is an allegory for things.
It's like Beauty and the Beast, but
instead of
an amphibian man.
This guy was a fish man and he got turned into a giant dog. What's the difference? But I love Shape of Water. And that's it. That's such an interesting question because like if you said the decade before, I would have had a really easy answer and would have been No Country for Old Men because it's one of my favorite films of all time. But like The Departed would be up there. But like that's such an interesting thing because like I know I look at my top 10 every year. I'm like, this does not look like the best picture nominees every year. But like it is what it is. And that's beauty of cinema. Everybody has films touch everybody in different ways. And like I have Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon in my top 5 from 2020. I doubt anybody else did in our whole video, but I love Shaun the Sheep. And like I had 2 animated movies in my top 5, that and Wolfwalkers. Yeah. And like I don't know, animation hits me and I really appreciate those kinds of films, and like a fantasy like Shape of Water really got me. That was a good question. I like that. It made me have to rethink everything that got nominated. It's funny because I do love La La Land, and it almost won.
Almost.
It made us think that it won. But like Moonlight's still a great film, and honestly, I'm happy a film like that won.
Yeah.
Because like little independent films like that are that small,
that tiny,
don't really get Best Picture.
No.
And that was something really impressive. It'll be very interesting to see what wins Best Picture this year.
My money is probably on Nomadland with the amount of love that's getting.
Either that, because like, and Minari, haven't seen that either.
Sound of Metal's getting a lot of love too. My personal favorite movie of this year is Onward. I freaking adore that movie so much. I love it. It's for personal reasons, but also beyond that, I just think it's a terrific movie. So. I'm
pretty sure Chris Pratt and Tom Holland could be brothers.
Yeah,
like they'd be fun brothers together.
They really do.
Pixar had a great year.
Yeah, they really did. They really did.
That's another thing too, because I don't feel like the animation category is going to be very different. Because like they came and they had some great films this year. So,
yeah.
But Ben, thank you for coming on to Lost in the Wasteland. I keep forgetting to do this, so I'm consciously remembering to do this. Ben, plug yourself. What do you want people to check out from you?
Okay, so if you are interested into more of my thoughts on movies and Star Wars and Marvel, DC, whatever, all random movies that mean a lot to me, I have a podcast, Ben Davis Movie Podcast. It's available pretty much on any podcast platform available. You can go hear me there. Just actually, Shape of Water, we discussed it quite a bit today. You can actually go listen to my episode about that this past week, where I go in depth about why I love that movie so much. You can also follow me over on Instagram at Ben Davis Movie Podcast, where I give reviews for certain movies from time to time. I have been slacking on that, but I promise I'll get better.
Awesome. And you should all check out SiftPop, because we could all shamelessly plug that.
Yes.
The fun place to do reviews and everything, and it's a pleasure working with you, Ben, and this is actually the first time we've actually seen each other face to face, so that's pretty cool too. So
yeah, Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on, man. Seriously, it's
Absolutely.
been a blast.
And thank you all for tuning in and always supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.